This is Chris Epting with an audio edition today of Surf City Chronicles. Some parents have reached out to me in the last couple of months wondering about a gentleman named Paul Moberly. Paul had been the DSA inspector during the asbestos scandal in the Ocean View School District in 2000, the fall of 2014, and I've managed to track Paul down. Paul, you're here with me right now, right?
That's correct, Chris.
And you're no longer in California. You left after the scandal, right? Immediately after what happened in the district, you took off, right?
Uh, Shortly thereafter.
Well, why don't you walk us back a little bit? Let's talk about how you got involved with the district, what your role was. Why don't you kind of set the table for people and just explain how you got involved and what your responsibilities were in 2014?
I'm a Division State Architect, Certified Class 2 Project Inspector. I was assigned the project through Sandy Pringle Inspections with the approval of the school district, the architect, the engineer, and finally the DSA for the Mesa View and the Oak View projects.
Mm-hmm. And what would your day consist of? What were your responsibilities that you were charged with on this project?
To observe instruction per the plans and the specifications to be in compliance with the code, the California Code for public works school buildings,
Mm-hmm.
for that section.
And how long did you work on the project for?
I think I started beginning of June until the end of September, roughly.
Mm-hmm. And why don't you talk about your impressions about the process? I mean, obviously, you've probably done a lot of these kind of projects. How did this one stack up? What were your impressions about how the removal process was conducted? Just why don't you sort of describe what your experience was in those months you're working on it?
Well, like most projects, a lot of stuff, the intangibles aren't figured in, and a lot of the contractors just try to get as much work done during the summer months when there's no school.
Mm-hmm.
Being taking place, and I just happened to be in the neighborhood, and I was waiting for a call for those guys to tell me when to show up for when construction would start, and I happened to go by Oakview, and I noticed that the electricians had been working there for a couple of weeks doing their stuff already without any notification to me by the school district or the project management company. So I showed up for work the next day when I notified Sandy, I guess, whoever Sandy's man was, would have been the other man. I can't think of his name right now. But so and like most of these projects, it's the low bidder that gets the work, and then they hire their own subcontractors. Mm-hmm. And there's a process where everybody has to set up to get going. And then when they had the first meeting, there wasn't too much discussion. They had weekly meetings, but the next meeting, all the contractors had things with electricians and the plumbers, like they discovered that there was asbestos in certain areas where they had to do their tear out deconstruction before they could run their lines of plumbing or this or that. There are some walls that are going to be removed also, and so that was brought up to the architect and the project manager, which I can't remember his name. I think it was Wayne, and they thought that it was asbestos because there was a note on one wall that said, "This is asbestos, do not disturb," that had been placed there previously. And then the next meeting we had the next week, there was a guy sitting behind the project manager, who I guess was his supervisor for project management company, who okayed the removal of asbestos. And then one of the projects I was watching was Mesa View, where there were asbestos tiles that were the original tile in the school building. And from one of the discussions I had with somebody on site that worked there at that school, he told me that they knew that tile, those shingles, had asbestos in them since 1986. Mm-hmm. And I asked the project management company how they were going to handle this, and never really got a firm reply about anything. And then one day I came back, because I was going from Oakview to Mesa View, came back, and about, I don't know, late afternoon, there was a crew of people on top of, I think it was Building D in Mesa View, where they were tearing off the asbestos shingles on top of the asphalt tile shingles, asbestos tile shingles. And looked to me like it was just a crew that they hired from, down at Home Depot. They had no safety equipment on. They're tearing shingles off one at a time and walking to the edge and throwing them down into the dumpster while there were kids and individuals, people walking by in that area. Nothing was, roped off. There was no safety equipment. And I contacted the project manager, told him what was going on, and he called up the prime contractor, who was, I can't remember what the roofing company was, because those people were their subcontractor. And he said he would take care of everything. And then, of course, the next day it was the same thing.
So even after after your complaint, nothing changed?
Yeah, after verbally talking to the guy on the phone, and he came over, looked at it too. A lot of these companies, they use their own people over and over again, the same subcontractors, so they work with them, and you get a feeling for every job whether something's going on correctly or incorrectly, or they're trying to hide something underneath the table. And this guy's getting the impression that this is going to be one of those type of projects. The actual contractor's project manager told me that they didn't have time to do the job correctly, which I've heard that before, but inspection is quality control, quality assurance, and they have no time schedule. Although you can't really tell that to the school district, because they want as many kids sitting in those seats as they can to get money back from the state. So they want to hear that everything is going to be done on time. And that can happen, but maybe you might have to bring in more people to do the work correctly. Maybe you have to work overtime. Maybe you have to work on the weekends. There's ways of doing it if you want to do it, but of course that costs extra money. And the name of the game is for them to make money, not to lose money.
Well, do you think that your concerns, did they cause troubles for you having the job? Because by late September, you're released by Sandy Pringle Associates. What do you think was behind that? Was it the fact that you were calling them out on things? I mean, as you remember it, what was your feeling about why that happened?
Well, I was getting calls from Sandy Pringle on Friday morning while I was doing another task for him somewhere else on another project I was finishing up. And the night before, after work, an architect who was working for the project management company came into my trailer and wanted to discuss a matter where I had written up the contractor and not a notice of non-compliance. And he was a nice guy, and he was a knowledgeable guy. And I can't really remember what that specific issue was, because he never really said it. But I kind of got the feeling that, because I had 2 or 3 of them out there, and once again, I had that paper in front of me, I wouldn't remember unless someone brought it to my attention, that he just slightly trying to pressure me. And I told him that, I played this game before, and I said, if you guys, want to get rid of me, however you do, but only DSA can remove you from the project. The school district can't remove me, Sandy Pringle can't remove me, and the contractor can't remove me. And if somehow I did get removed, all those non-compliances that I did right, I would not, approve them that the work is done one way or the other, because I'm not here to do that. This is not a hobby. This is my job. You get paid for doing this. So either the contractor could do the job as it's specified in specifications and per the code and per the plans and details, or you can have somebody else say that's okay. And that would be after the architect and the engineer have to write a report to DSA saying that they accept that work, which is another thing that even DSA would have to prove. It all depends on what the actual deviation was. Mm-hmm. And the next day, when I first saw Sandy Pringle on site, he started screaming and yelling at me, acted like I was ignoring his phone call, which I wasn't. We walked back to my office in the trailer, and the first thing he said to me, he started screaming, is that he wanted my Form 6. And I told him so that he could leave because, I could see what was going on, and, I don't need anybody yelling at me because I'm doing my job. But I've had architects and engineers and even DSA inspectors and engineers tell me that I'm one of the good guys because I'm the one that actually does the inspection like it's supposed to be done and like it should be done, because the people that you're really trying to protect are those school kids that are sitting in those seats, and not the contractor and not the school district.
So why do you think you were fired?
I have no idea, because they don't have to tell you anything. It's a right to work.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like I said before, is that DSA is the only one that can remove you from a project. So I kept in contact with the architect. The architect told me that the whole thing was being revamped, that project management company was out the door, a new one was coming in. There'd be no work going on for a while. I emailed, there were a couple times, like I CC'd the head of the San Diego office for DSA also, and I got a letter emailed back to everybody via him saying that there was no reason for me to be removed. I am still the assigned project inspector for those two schools, and that's the last I heard about anything. The next thing I knew was that they submitted the architect signed somebody else's Form 5 for another inspector from Sandy Pringle to come and take over those projects. So the thing is that DSA didn't back me up. Sandy Pringle didn't definitely back me up. The school district didn't back me up, and neither did the architect.
And then you were contacted shortly after your dismissal in late September by a couple of, you told me offline, a couple of school board trustees, among other people too, I guess.
Well, I only talked to the two people that had my number.
Who would have been who?
One of them was, I think, William Briscoe.
John Briscoe?
John Briscoe. And another one was a woman, Tarvin something maybe, I can't remember.
Gina Clayton Tarvin?
That sounds familiar.
So
I think there was another individual that contacted me who got my number from the woman, whoever that was.
And what was their?
Which would
they,
been
they
Gene.
Contacted you because.
Because their kids went to one of those schools.
And so, what did they want to know from you?
Well, I guess they were upset because they didn't know that there was asbestos removal going on that was not brought to their attention by the project management company at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of upset with the school superintendent. And they said that I would still be on the job no matter what. And they contacted me a few other times. They had the superintendent call me up and talk to me. I don't know. I can't remember what it was. But I'm sure it had to do with the asbestos removal. Mm-hmm. And then there was a meeting going on a couple of times where they wanted me to come. Some of the parents in the school district wanted me to come down to a meeting in October, but I couldn't make it. And last time I talked to John Briscoe, he just kind of like, he got what he wanted, and then he didn't need anything else from me.
Did they care? Did they want any kind of confidentiality? Did they want you revealing you had spoken to them, or
No, they didn't want me to tell anybody that I had spoken with them, to keep it quiet.
Paul, when you think back to your experience, it seems like the concern for the kids was driving you. If you saw something that you felt was a threat, you jumped on it. That meant a lot to you, right? I mean, that was the purpose for you being there, and you took that part of it very seriously.
Well, wouldn't any human being do that?
I would think so. It just surprises me that the fact that that was your
the thing is, when you're getting flack from a bunch of people, Chris, you're usually on target. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like I told you at the very beginning, that this is a low bidder. They're trying to make money. They don't have enough people to do the job correctly all the time per their own admission. So they feel that the inspector is not a team member, which means that you have to go along with them. And I'm not that type of person. I've never been that type of person. Mm-hmm. Inspectors that go along with the contractor never have a trouble with anybody because they like them. Now, what happens usually with people like that is that the school district will have to pay for all those things that deteriorate or go bad after the contract is up. But all that money is, from the taxpayers. That's the reason why I believe the state of California wants an inspector on site, because not just because of the code and stuff like that, but also ensure that the school gets what they're paying for, because that is tax money from the state and the district. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But of course, when it's not their money, people don't care about it, and they want you to do the same thing. Right. One of the jobs they had previously before, the project manager for the project manager came and says, "Why worry about this school? It's a piece of crap." But, somebody has to worry about it somewhere, Chris, and somebody has to take a stand and make a change. Otherwise, you're going to do the same thing every day. And the thing is that nothing will happen until there's an earthquake or a fire or something that someone does get injured, and then there'll be a big stink about it. The thing is that if you take care of yourself every day the way you're supposed to, you never have to worry about that. You'll be able to sleep at night. And you won't have to need people to come talk to you after work about their problems.
Well, Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate you sort of running down. I know it was tough when you were out here and you went through this, but it sounds like you were there for the right reasons and you were doing a great job. And for some reason, that wasn't in the cards to have you stick around through the whole process. But I think on behalf of a lot of the families that followed this, I'm sure they will be happy to hear your words and the fact that you were looking out and the fact that it did upset you to see all of this stuff being revealed, exposed when there were kids. I mean, how close were the kids when you describe, watching the tiles at Macyville? How close were the kids outside playing to that when you saw it?
They were right next to or underneath the building where they were doing the tear off. There was approximately 300 kids doing an after-school program that Saturday morning. I went out and told the contractor, "What are you doing? You're not doing the job the way I know that asbestos is supposed to be removed," even though I had nothing to do with asbestos inspection or removal. That's not in my scope of work for DSA. That falls on another authority. It has nothing to do with the Division of State Architect. And that also there's supposed to be another inspector that comes out, hired by the school district to ensure that work is done correctly for the removal. When that didn't happen, I guess a concerned citizen called up SQAMD. Within half an hour, a guy came out and he observed that the guy worked at SQAMD. He observed those guys doing just what I had observed, where they were removing the asbestos incorrectly, asbestos becoming airborne and floating over the athletic field.
And what did the AQMD guy do about it?
He said that there'd be a violation written up and be delivered to the school district.
Do you know if that happened, Paul?
Only the person who reported the violation would have privy to that information. And if it's a concerned citizen, they don't know who it is. They won't give that information up. However, I would believe that the school district can know about it.
You would think, yeah. There should be some record of it like that.
Yes, one way or the other, yes.
Well, Paul, again, thanks for the diligent work you did out here. I'm sorry the way it seems like it worked out. Again, you did the right thing on behalf of the kids and the families. And again, I'm sure a lot of parents will, hearing your voice describing this, will be thankful for that. Even though they'll be probably justifiably frustrated that this stuff was airborne as you observed it and that it wasn't fixed immediately once you reported it.
Well, Chris, everybody has to protect themselves. The only insurance you have in this world is your common sense and looking out for yourself. When you put your responsibilities in somebody else's hand, they should be a very responsible person. And I would believe that the school district, if they want to be on that school board and they want to have an authority over other people, they should do their job correctly also.